All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Wellness Cafe. Today, we have a special guest in the house. He lives in his awesome A-frame house next to the beach in California. His name is David Bradley. He is a sales and marketing manager for Grant Cardone. And if you are familiar at all in the entrepreneurial world, you probably know who Grant Cardone is. He is also the founder of RichMansGym, a blog that's really provide a cool concept and perspective on fitness and exercises. He's also an author of the book called How to Stop Smoking Without Killing Anyone. And basically, he delivers the exact mindset you need and the action step you need to be able to finally kick the smoking habit before you kick the bucket, essentially. Welcome, David.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. And yeah, and we met at the Chiro Sushi Summit, where it was a conference for chiropractors. And, you know, after a few minutes of talking, we just jived right away. I mean, your perspective on health and wellness and the openness that you had. So that's why I was like, you know what? I had to get this guy to come on the show. So thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. I think I like what you say about openness. It's like, you know, if you hold stuff back, you can't really help anybody.
Yeah, and definitely. Let's talk about the RichMansGym story. I mean, I was moved up by the story, and it was kind of funny how it got started too. So why don't you share a bit about that blog and what do you do in that blog and how it got started?
Yeah, so the catchphrase for RichMansGym, so it's richmansgym.com. It's about strength and conditioning for body, mind, and spirit. And my goal is to be as complete and as whole of a human being as I can. I really truly believe that we are all infinite beings having a temporary human experience on this planet. We were given this incredible gift that is our body. And our mind and our spirit, and those three things flow together. And if you neglect one, you consequently neglect the others. And so the other slogan with RichMansGym is train anywhere. And so I don't believe you need to go to the gym, right, to get in the best shape of your life. I think that never mind the staff at the gym, not staff like the bacteria staff, not the people there too, but like, you know, I shouldn't have to wait 25 minutes to get on a machine. I shouldn't have to wipe off somebody else's sweat. I shouldn't have to be enmeshed in a social club with a nightclub with a squat rack is basically some of the experiences I've had at the gym. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? So what I started doing was training from home, and I stumbled very quickly into Russian kettlebell training, which was, I mean, if you've got a Russian kettlebell, you literally can take a gym anywhere you want to go. And I fell absolutely in love with that, really got into Pavel Tsatsouline's teachings on strength and conditioning, and where the body, mind, and spirit piece plugged in was in 2007, and we'll get into some of this. In 2002, I stopped smoking. We'll talk about that later. In 2007, I decided to cut all alcohol out of my life. And at that point, I was drinking very heavily, lost a lot of I just didn't have any control. So I just started taking control back of my life. And one of those things was to start exercising consistently every single day, pushing my own perceived limits and blasting through all the different fun things that come from, you know, detoxing from, you know, being an alcoholic. So one night I'm outside. I've stopped going to the gym at this point. I'm all about pull-ups and push-ups and kettlebell training and heavy swings and snatches and all of that natural stuff and just non-gym stuff. And I've got a pair of Olympic rings hanging from this big fat oak tree. It's like 8 o'clock at night. It's cold out. And I'm doing a press ladder, some Russian kettlebell presses with pull-ups. And so this dude goes jogging by, you know, and he sees this and he goes, "Hey, nice poor man's gym you got there." And I'm like, "Nah, man, this is a rich man's gym." And like, it was like, you know, the ding, the clouds parted, the sky opened up, like, oh. And so it started me on this sort of journey about exploring strength and conditioning for body, mind, and spirit, where you can just train anywhere. You don't need to go to the gym to get in the best shape of your life. You know, there's I live at the beach, and so there's this there's like a 3.5 mile trek from these stairs right over here all the way down to Morro Rock and then back, about 6 miles round trip. And I call that God's treadmill.
There you go. I mean,
Yeah.
I can see the concept because a lot of people, I mean, me included, sometimes using the act of going to the gym as an excuse to not go to the gym. I gotta drive 20 minutes. Man, it's gonna be crowded. It's 5 o'clock. Let's just do it tomorrow. That, like, you create so many barriers, and by eliminating that and just train anywhere, you really kind of cut out your bullshit essentially.
Totally. I think excuses usually start creating themselves when two things have happened, where you have a lack of priority, right, and a lack of ritual.
Let's talk about that.
So if something is not a priority, you will suddenly not have time to do it.
Right.
Right. But if you make a priority out of whatever that may be, and we don't need to just be about going to the gym. And since RichMansGym is about body, mind, and spirit, it could be if you haven't made a priority of meditation, if you haven't made a priority of educating yourself, daily personal education, or physical training, or so. If it's not a priority, then you will find every excuse in the book to not do it. And you'll justify all of those things. The other piece of that is that you need to have a ritual. So my classic example on this deal is brushing your teeth.
Okay.
Right? It's a priority. If you forget to do it, you'll turn around and go back home and get it handled, or you'll stop on the way. Right? You'll grab a toothbrush somewhere. Like you get your teeth brushed. Right? And there's just it's an only practice. It's not a best practice. It's just I brush my teeth every day. And then there's also a ritual. Right? So when you brush your teeth, some people get the brush wet first and then put the toothpaste on. Other people put the toothpaste on first and they get it wet, right? And then how do you do it, right? Do you start on this side? Like there's a ritual, right? So if you don't have the priority set in place, and if you don't have the ritual behind it, then you won't do it. So if you set a specific time of day to where, and you can cut out the commute, right? You just saved 40 minutes of your deal. If you go to your garage and you have a good mat, right, and you do 100 jumping jacks and then see how many burpees you can do in 10 minutes, right, followed by 2 minutes of as many sit-ups as you can do, every muscle in your body just got worked.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
And it doesn't matter what level of conditioning you're at. Let's just say somebody's morbidly obese, and if they even attempted that, they would drop dead. Right? So why not just see how many times you can stand up and sit down in 5 minutes? Sit in a chair, stand back up, sit in a chair, stand back up, sit in a chair, stand back up for 5 minutes, and then do push-ups off a wall for 5 minutes. And record that. Get a little bit better every single time. That's that's the two extremes. Incredibly out of shape to, being in pretty good conditioning to do 10 minutes worth of burpees. How long does it take to go a mile?
Right.
Right. In our neighborhood, we got a lot of hills. And in fact, some of our hills in this neighborhood are pretty freaking rude, frankly. So my wife and I, we plotted out this little course around our neighborhood that involved two very rude, obnoxious hills. One is this long, 150-yard incline that just doesn't seem to stop. But we plotted out a 1.2 mile course. And the challenge is, how fast can we get that done? It doesn't matter if you're in good shape, bad shape, man, find a mile of course in your neighborhood and figure out how fast can I do this. And if it starts out, takes me 20 minutes, takes you 20 minutes, and then just start getting better, get more efficient, get more proficient at doing that work.
Right. This is applicable across the board. I mean, if you're a human being, you should be able to do it, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, our nature was hunter-gatherer. We walked, how many miles a day do you think we walked 15,000 years ago?
Probably 15, 20.
Easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now we're just trying to get to 6,000 steps on our Fitbit or whatever the hell.
Right. So, were you always in tune with your body, mind, spirit?
No. As I mentioned earlier, I've had some early loss in my life. My mother died at a young age. A couple buddies of mine growing up passed away. Unfortunate. And I didn't really know how to grieve, And so I found solace. John Daniels and I got pretty close. right? And it became a very easy way to mask that pain. And so I was highly disconnected from my body, highly disconnected from my spirit. And as soon as I got to a place to where I took full responsibility for that and started to reconnect to not just my body, but it was actually me reconnecting to my body that helped me reconnect to my mind and my spirit.
Right. And what was the pivotal moment, I guess, if you had to go back and was like, you know what, this is it?
It's an interesting story, sort of. It's, I'll try and keep it short, but in 2007, February, I was in the auto industry at that time. I was selling cars, and big President's Day weekend sale. I missed a bonus by half a deal. And at that point, I was drinking probably a good bottle. Most likely, I'd probably handle a whole bottle of Jack in a day.
Quite a bit.
And it was more of an evening binge. So the way I structured this thing was I promised my wife that I would only have one drink a day. So that means the rest of the drinks needed to get snuck in. So when I got off of work, I would usually get one of those little airplane bottles. Mm-hmm. I'd get 2 or 3 of those, and I'd finish them before I got home. And then I'd get in the house, I'd have my one drink, and then I had a couple bottles stashed, one in my office and my desk, and then one in the bathroom behind some towels. And I worked the system really well. It was awful. Okay. So I come home, I decided to cook dinner to chill out. I had 2 extra drinks. I got permission for that from her in front of her because I told her I had a really rough day and da-da-da-da-da, right? I sit down to eat, and all of a sudden I got a little dizzy, got really nauseous, stood up, went in the bathroom, vomited, went to bed, and I was in bed for about 2 days. Couldn't get out. And I think what had happened is in terms of like stress, anxiety, grief, all of that stuff got to this place where it just popped. And that 2 days, I thought I was going to die. I literally felt like any minute now I'm going to have a heart attack or a stroke. I mean, the anxiety level was so high. If you could have I have no idea how much cortisol was probably pumping through my system, but I was just in bad shape. And I called in sick to work. It was food poisoning. Tried to I just didn't want to go public with this whole thing. I knew it was going on. I knew this was like, I've popped, I've hit my limit. I can't, this is my rock bottom.
Right.
So I barely get by that first week. I go back to work after my alleged food poisoning. I come home after a sales meeting on Friday, and I told my wife, I said, this is it. I'm done. I can't drink anymore. I don't want to have any part of it. I need your help. And so she supported me through that. Haven't had a drink since. That's really the caveat. But I think a lot of times for me, that was the cue for me to get to work on healing the grief. Mm. So the ways that I did that, I found a lot of comfort and solace in a couple authors, Wayne Dyer, Dan Millman, Neil Donald Walsh, those 3 Conversations with God, The Power of Intention, and The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. If it wasn't for those 3 books, probably wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. A couple other things that really helped were Turkish get-ups and heavy kettlebell swings. Nothing was quite as empowering as feeling like I'm going to have a heart attack, knowing that it's not real, right? And then going and swinging a heavy kettlebell for 12 minutes, it just is a way to say F you to this whole panic. I just didn't want any part of it, and I wanted to fight back. Mm. So to go do something that would get my heart rate up to 200 beats per minute was my way of validating this is all in your head. Flush it out, filter it, push through, conquer this aspect of yourself, right? Help release this negativity that you've been carrying around. So pushing through that with a lot of heavy kettlebell swings. And then the final piece that I think was really helpful, and as we talked about in the very beginning, so sales and marketing manager for Grant Cardone. Grant's sales training took me as an automotive professional from barely surviving in sales to being able to create real prosperity for myself. And one of the things that Grant talks about is that you have to be in tune with your goals and your dreams, and you need to visit your goals and your dreams every single day. Looking at your goals and your dreams once a year at the first of the year is not the way to make them real, right? Out of sight, out of mind. You do it once a year, then you thought about it once, and then a whole year goes by, and you're like, oh, what happened? I had all these plans, right? So I started writing down for myself my goals and my dreams, one of which included I live on the central coast of California in a rustic seafaring home on the water with my wife every day, twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. I had other things that I was writing, but this would be the key. So that gave me the motivation to want to continue to stay moving and to stay front sight focused on not drinking, taking better care of me, and becoming the best me I can be.
Right. Did you have that visualization or goals as far as your mind, body, spirit, and where you want it to be?
Yeah.
And what was that like?
At the time, I would write things like, I can snatch a kettlebell 200 times in 10 minutes. I can press half my body weight. I'm a strong, confident. This is my affirmation. I still use it. I'm a strong, confident, capable, deserving, and rich man who is full of life, love, vigor, and inspiration.
And some of these goals are quantifiable. For example, 200 push-ups, 500 sit-ups.
Yeah.
How do you quantify, for example, the state of your? I mean, you can't quantify, like, for example, like state of your happiness or your well-being. I guess how do you set that as a goal if it's not measurable?
Well, it very well may be to some degree. I think one of my things was getting rid of, well, not necessarily getting rid of, that's not a good term, because you really can't fight or hide. You can't hide anxiety, right? Or you can't, if that's a thing you struggle with, it's there. So it's not like, it's like trying to refuse to participate in an earthquake. It's like, dude, it's happening.
Right. You're along for the ride.
Right. It's coming. So you can either work within that or not. And so I think there are some real tangible physical elements that are involved. I mean, we're human beings. We've got flesh and blood, and that's part of it. And so if you're looking to bridge this gap between the physical side and then the human side, there's some people that have existed before us that did a really good job at that. Jesus is a good example. Gandhi's a great example. Buddha. I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours on who those people are and how they did that. But if you take it and I think maybe sort of filter it down a little bit to look at a human, one of the ways that I know that I have control over my anxiety, for example, is that, I don't pick my thumbs anymore.
That's a good one. I do that.
I don't bite my nails anymore. Right. I don't, so how is your disconnect manifesting physically? For me, it was cigarettes, it was alcohol, it was, picking, there's all these different things, and how are they manifesting physically? You try and gain control over that, it's not going to happen.
So it's not something that you win. It's more like, are you more like accepting and realize that you're having that tendency and go the other way? If that makes sense.
Yeah. So if we transition into the whole smoking thing in my book.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because that's kind of where we're headed. That's about addiction. And addiction, it's interesting. What I talk to when I'm coaching a person trying to become a non-smoker again, I'm like, look, man, you decided to start. Now we're just going to decide to stop. And that may sound like simplistic to a point of irritation, but that's the reality. And the more simple you keep this, the more effective it's going to be. So the technique that I discovered was that you have to be as present as you possibly can in this one moment. And this will apply to anything you're trying to get a handle on, whether it's picking your fingers to biting your nails to, I don't want to do another repetition, this workout's getting too hard, like whatever it may be. I'm here in this moment. What just happened is over, and what is going to happen hasn't happened yet. So if I can be in this moment present with me, I am not smoking right now. I can't control anything I already did. I can't control anything that's not happened yet. But right now, in this moment, I am not having a cigarette, or I am not having a drink, or I am not picking my nails, or I'm not whatever. Okay? Or I am working out. I am doing burpees, right? I am doing my push-ups, right? Whatever it's about being in this present moment. And so the decision becomes very simple and easy if all you need to worry about is the next 3 to 5 seconds. So when I finally decided to stop smoking, I'm like, I need to make a decision every second. And in that first couple of days of nicotine withdrawal, you literally are making, you feel like you're going to climb the walls, So it's all you want to do is have a cigarette. And same thing if you're dieting, right? If you're trying to get off sugar or whatever it is, all you want to do is grab a donut or have a Coke or, whatever your deal is. But in this moment, right here, right now, you're not, and therefore you don't have to. And the next moment is a decision that you make. So in this moment, I'm deciding not to have a cigarette. I'll worry about the next moment when I get there. And what happens is that over time, the distance between having to make that decision gets longer and longer and longer and longer. And technically, I view myself as a smoker who doesn't smoke.
How does that help?
Well, the book is called How to Stop Smoking Without Killing Anyone. And if you look at the title, like on the cover, right, see how like the word stop is over the word quit?
Yes.
Okay. Where in anywhere else in life is quit a good thing?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. Right? I got to quit smoking. I got to quit drinking. It's either associated with a bad habit or a quitter. Nobody likes a quitter. So to put those two words in the same context, I think it confuses the crap out of people. Like it jacks with your subconscious a little bit, right? You've got two different definitions of the word quit, and they both go in the opposite direction.
Right.
So what I wanted to do is say, all right, I'm not a quitter, right? I don't quit, but I'm going to stop. And so right now in this moment, because if you think I'm going to quit smoking, the other thing that happens is I'm never going to have a cigarette again. And your addicted brain has no comprehension of that and will fight you tooth and nail.
That makes sense.
Okay. But if I got to go into a movie theater, it's not 1947 anymore, so I can't smoke in a movie theater. If I got to get on an airplane, I can't smoke on a plane. So I'm not going to smoke for 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever the distance is. So it's clear that we can go without a cigarette. And if I started smoking when I was 14 years old, that means I spent 14 years without cigarettes. Didn't kill me. I didn't die. So I'm just not going to have a cigarette right now. I'll worry about the next moment when I get there. Next thing you know, that was 2002 when I had that cognition and stopped smoking. But I'm a smoker that doesn't smoke.
Have you had a cigarette since?
No.
So based on that principle alone, you're able to apply that to alcohol and cigarettes or any habits that you want to stop or create, right?
Right.
And I guess the next question would be like, can you solely rely on that, or did you solely rely on that, or is there, or just that mental toughness that I'm gonna get through this with tenacity, or is it a little more complicated than that, or is it just simple as that? You make the decision and then boom, you're done.
Yeah. In the moment, it is that simple. But I think one of the reasons that people, I'll just give you chapter 5 in this book is this caused a lot of controversy. But I'll show you what chapter 5 looks like. Just a bunch of lines. Chapter 5 is I'm going to have people write an essay on why they're trying to kill themselves.
Okay.
The cigarettes are, in my opinion, especially now with what we know, is a passive-aggressive form of suicide.
So basically, you're trying to get your readers to elaborate on why they hate themselves.
Well, why they're trying to kill themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you're smoking a cigarette. I mean, it's going to kill you. If you do it long enough, unless you're that old lady in France, right, who's a 1 in a million person who, you know, she was 90 and she decided to stop smoking because it was affecting her ability to ride her bike, right? Unless you're Jack LaLanne or some, you know, mutant. Humphrey Bogart died when he was in his 50s, right? Viral, handsome. I mean, a man's man.
Right.
Right. And he was so emaciated when he died that in order for him to visit his friends, they put him in a dumbwaiter. You know what a dumbwaiter is?
No.
It's in a mansion. It's like a little miniature elevator that you would put food in to get it to, right? You'll see it in cartoons and stuff, okay? It's literally a small elevator. He was like 80 pounds. Humphrey frickin' Bogart, right? Rick from Casablanca, 80 pounds, withered man, throat cancer, smoking. And the cigarettes were attached to his masculinity, right? So, but, you know, we've all seen The Insider. We know what cigarettes do. We know what nicotine does. We know it's an addictive, dangerous drug. And if you still decide to smoke, dude, somewhere you don't feel like you're worth it. So the point that I'm coming back to on this is that one of the things that if you need the bigger picture, so you've got your moment-to-moment thing, but you most likely need to attach your reasoning, your why for stopping with something bigger than you. Mm. Because if you already thought you were worth it, you'd have quit already. You'd have stopped already. You wouldn't still be doing it. Okay. So there's something in you that allows you to believe you on your own are not worth it. So you need to connect it to something bigger and better than you or greater than you in your opinion. So the sooner I can get you to put on paper what you don't like about yourself or why you feel like you're trying to commit a passive aggressive form of suicide, the sooner you can address that issue and then start connecting to your bigger purpose. You know, in my case, it was after September 11th happened. So I stopped in 2002. September 11th happened. I realized probably one of the first times in my life how fragile and how fast this adventure we're on can end. Mm. And at that same time, I had met this really wonderful woman. And I'm like, well, here's somebody I want to grow old with. Here's somebody I want to have around when I'm 80. And it didn't take much for me to connect because I had known about Humphrey Bogart's death for a long time. It didn't take much for me to like put those two things into perspective and say, dude, if you want to be 80 and walking on the beach with this woman, that ain't going to happen if you're smoking, you know, a pack and a half a day of American Spirit or Camel. I switched over to American Spirit because they're natural. Like I'm going to get natural cancer, right? Or it doesn't make any sense to me. Like in retrospect, it was like, oh, it'll be easier to stop. No, it wasn't any easier to stop. Nicotine is nicotine. Sure, maybe, you know, R.J. Reynolds chemically enhances their nicotine to make it more addictive, but addiction's addiction, man, you know, and there's no such thing as light cancer. So for those of you that are watching, if you're smoking light cigarettes, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty funny. Now, I want to bring you back to the when you were talking about the space between each cravings. I think that's the same thing that I experience when, let's say, when I meditate, for example. You know, the thoughts start to wander, and then I notice it, and then I bring it back.
Correct.
And then as I do more and more, or practice a little more daily, and it has to be daily, I fooled myself thinking, you know, I can do it. Hey, I'll just meditate 2 times a week, 3 times a week. No, it has to be daily to get that perpetual improvement, to start to see that the space between each thought start to grow a little bigger, space apart. So that's why I resonated with you when you said that. And that brings us to the next point is, do you do meditation or certain type of mind training or thought watching while you're quitting or while you're trying to change your habit as well to help you?
I did not. I don't necessarily think I meditate.
Okay.
Every day, just like you. And we can talk about sort of that. I know we had talked about getting into like stress management, so we can transition to that. But I think in terms of you willing yourself through, because I mean, cold turkey is the hardest way to stop smoking, but it is also the most effective.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that Grant Cardone says, which is one of my favorite quotes, is pay the price today so you can pay any price tomorrow. And that's in terms of building wealth, right? So you're going to have to go through, some fire, some brimstone, and some suffering to create the life you want. So with that, if you bring that into stopping smoking or getting rid of a bad habit and creating a better one, you're going to have, there's a price, right? There is a price, and there's going to be some suffering involved. And when you go through that, it solidifies, like, for number one, like, why would I want to start smoking again if I know I'm going to have to go through that crap? Right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So there's that. But also, being able to just be present in this moment, I think, is as much, like, it's hard enough to silence your brain.
Yeah, that's true.
More or less, like, I wouldn't want to ask somebody to try and do that while trying to, like, get off nicotine or something. I mean, it may be helpful. It's just to keep you distracted, but I mean, there is so much going on upstairs when that's happening. I really don't think it's necessary. I didn't do it. I was able to stop. Most of my readers that have gone through it take up a meditation practice after they get through that initial, 1 or 2 weeks of just grinding it out. And that's the best part. It really, the nicotine's out of your system within the first 72 hours. After that, it's a head game. It's literally a head game.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean, I guess you can look at that as a growing experience that you can apply anything in your life. Like, if I can get through this, then I can apply it to the next thing, whatever I want to create, right? And use it as a training, a rich man's gym to create the life that you want to live.
Yeah, I think everybody, I didn't do military service. It's one of I made a lot of stupid choices up to getting to 44 years old. And in retrospect, I don't regret a single one of them, because it made me who I am today. And I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you and have this conversation if it wasn't for some of the decisions I've made. So I don't have regret. But the one thing that I wish that I would have done in retrospect would have been to serve my country. So if that's you, right, being able to stop smoking and go through that's your boot camp.
Certainly.
Yeah. That's where, like, I'm an only child. I didn't have a big brother. So if I want a big brother, I got to be my own big brother.
What do you do on a day-to-day to help you manage stress? You said you meditate and you do a lot of kettlebell swings. And, like, let's say the question would be, like, when you start to notice, right, the stress levels in your environment start to increase, whether it's work, whether it's tension somewhere in your mind, conflicts, what do you do?
Breathe.
I like that. That's awesome. We just had an episode on, I did a mini episode on back to the breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come back to the present moment.
Uh-huh. I've got, have you heard of Wim Hof?
Yes. The Iceman.
Yeah. So I read his book, and then I started doing his breathing routine, and that's been huge for me. I absolutely love how I feel when I make that routine. Prior to that, I studied or practiced sort of a japa meditation, if you will, and mantra. And so I'm kind of incorporating those three things together. But I think for what's most important for me is that, and I love you brought this up earlier. So that whole getting into that empty space, or Wayne Dyer calls it getting in the gap, or wherever that is, it's, you should, with enough practice, be able to create that anytime, any place, anywhere. Sitting in traffic, in front of your desk, and you just got the worst email of the day, or whatever the whirlwind is today, right? You should be able to take a quick moment, push pause, in good, out shit.
In good, out shit.
Yeah. Let it go. And I like using my hands when I do that. I pull it in. I pull in the good stuff and I just push out the crap. I just bring it in, push it out, bring it in, push it out. There's a lot of, I've studied Qigong and I've looked at Tai Chi, and while I couldn't do all the moves or the poses. I love how Wim Hof just makes his own up, but like, it's just, if I can start flowing again and get the energy moving in the direction that I want it, and I want it circulating in the right way and all of that, then I feel like I can manage my stress. And stress, if you go by Wayne Dyer's definition, which I love, stress is a desire of the ego. It's when what I think should be happening is not.
Right.
And then I get stressed.
You're a little short of your expectations.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talks about that too. Like, his definition of happiness is when your blueprint matches your life experience, and then unhappiness is the opposite, where it doesn't match. And then he talks about suffering being where the blueprint doesn't match the life experience and you feel powerless to do anything about it.
Mm. Yeah, that reminded me of an interview I watched on a monk in Thailand, when he was asked by the people, like, hey, what do I do if I don't have time to meditate? And the reply was, do you breathe?
Right.
Right. And that was a simple wisdom that was powerful. Just like, hey, you do that all the time anyways. It's both voluntary if you focus on it, and involuntary. Mm-hmm. So it's what Alan Watts call it. Gosh, what? It's the connection between the subconscious and the conscious.
Yeah. Yeah. I think getting in that gap, getting in that place. I know that for me, if I feel like I'm losing that connection to spirit, or I'm not as in tune with whoever you want it to be, God, the force, I think it's all the same dude, right? Buddha, Krishna, Allah, same guy. Just different name and different methodology of communicating with that particular region of the planet or the universe, Right. When you're not connected to that person, that entity, it's a matter of returning to your breath. And like when we first started our conversation, I talked, I truly believe infinite being having a temporary human experience, and you don't need to wait to die to connect to that infinite nature. Most people do.
Right.
Wait, you don't have to.
We're the expression of the evolving universe.
Yeah.
It's still going. The Big Bang's still going.
Yeah, it's still happening.
You.
Yeah, exactly.
You're moving through space is literally the extension of the Big Bang to create the next thing.
Totally. Yeah. I never understood, this is new for me, but, recognizing things like when somebody says, I'm tired. Okay. Well, your physical body gets tired, sure, right? There's only a certain amount of calories you can burn in any one given period of time, and yes, you are going to tire. But to feel like you don't have any energy, I mean, how is that? I mean, if you look at how much energy is involved in just keeping, our body's really empty space, right? The table that my laptop is sitting on, I'm talking to you, it's mostly empty space. If you look deep enough, it's empty space. It's gravity. It's this energy, this universal energy that I think has some level of intelligence when it's all put together. Dude, how can you not have energy? It's all energy.
Right. Your cells are working. You're breathing.
All the time.
Your heart's pumping. Yeah. And a lot of that is linguistic programming too, because I just walked into the building and I was asking a gentleman that was sweeping the floor, and I was like, hey, morning, how you doing? And his answer was, hanging in there. And that got me to think. Like,
Yeah.
at 9 o'clock, you're hanging in there. What kind of reality that
Right.
is? Or like,
At least
how
he didn't say
long?
live in the dream, bro.
Yeah, or how long has he been saying that?
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Did you call him out on it?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. It just got me to reflect for a second.
Right.
And how I'm expressing to other people how I'm doing. Because when he said that, it lowered my mood.
Right.
It's like, bummer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So now that it got me to pay attention to myself and on how I interact with the world, what kind of stuff I'm putting out there, I'm going to make sure that it's elevating instead of depressing.
Yeah, one of the things that have you ever read a book called Relentless by Tim Grover?
Nope.
So he was Michael Jordan's personal trainer, basically. He brought strength training to the NBA. And in his book, he talks about how if you are on a court with Jordan, whether you are on his team or not, just being on the court would elevate somebody's game.
Wow.
You would play better just because you were on the court with him. And one of the things that I took away from that is, I'm like, well, do people play better when they're around me? Like, I started really asking that question, and not in terms of, that may sound egotistical, but it's like, I want to elevate people. I want someone to want to raise their game because they're around me. Like, I want to be somebody that inspires other people to greatness, not be a relief to somebody because they're not me.
That's true.
Right? So that, I mean, you'll see somebody. So this guy mopping your floor, part of you was probably like, I'm glad that's not me.
Yeah.
Right? You feel bad for him. You want to elevate him. You want to raise him up. But part of you is like, I'm glad that's not me. Right? And that's a harsh reality that we all have to look at. I mean, sometimes you drive by, a horrible auto accident, and you have to deal with, I'm glad that wasn't me. Right? It's not necessarily selfish. It's real, right? So, but what are we doing as humans every single day to elevate other people? Like, so part of my goal now, and hopefully I'm doing this today, is I want to leave people better than I found them. So if I come into contact with somebody, I really want to engage with them. I want to pay attention to them. I want to make eye contact if it's real. I want them to feel that I'm here with them. In Grant's book, Sell or Be Sold, we talk a lot about loving the one you're with. So whenever you're there, man, just give them everything. And so can I leave somebody better than the way I found them? And if that becomes sort of, that's one of the things that I'm working on now.
Right. And just little things. Eye contacts with the person checking out the groceries at the grocery store.
Yeah. You know what I do just to challenge everybody that's listening to this podcast right now? Today, go top off somebody's parking meter.
You know what? I just read about that it actually goes forward. When people see somebody do that, there's a study that shows that it happens 3 or 4 more times. And just like there was a same study, I think, at the Starbucks drive-thru where a person buys the coffee.
Starts a snowball.
Yeah, and he was saying that act went on for 4 hours at the drive-thru. Like, people were buying other people's coffee just to pay it forward.
Right.
That's awesome. I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah, like I think I wrote this funny little article on five ways to feel like Batman every single day. It's on a website called Hub Pages. But the last thing is to perform random acts of kindness. And I think if you can detach from being identified as the donor, right, or the giver, you just do it, and you do it in a way that you can't get caught, which is why I like the idea of topping off the parking meter, paying it forward in line at Starbucks. I've had just little stuff like that. Like if you saw so for example, like if you have gift certificates, like I've seen people do this. I've done it myself, where you go buy a bunch of like gift cards and just randomly pass them out. Drop in places where people, like if you see somebody's like car window open, just chuck it in there. Like, no need for you to be recognized for what you did, right? Another like fun thing to do if you really want to challenge yourself is go donate, not your old shit, but go give away your favorite shirt.
Mm.
Like the shirt you love to wear, donate that, right? See what that does for you.
Yeah, initially it would probably sound like, oh man, gosh, I don't want to do that. But after you do it, I bet you feel an immense elevation in your state.
Right, because anybody can give away stuff they don't want, and we're going to throw it away.
Yeah, and you practice detachment too, so you're not too affected by a loss or perceive negative events.
Right, like, oh, that was my favorite shirt.
Right, doesn't matter. They're all going to turn into dust at some point.
Yeah,
anyways.
and if you bought it once, you can buy it again. Let's just give it to somebody else now. You know, that's an abundance thinking. You know, that was you can, you know, abundance is about there is no lack unless you opt for it. It's a decision you make.
Certainly, there is no pie, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's all pie. It's just this giant, massive pie. Or if you run out, make more. I mean, it's
infinite
not,
pie.
Right. That number goes on.
There's enough to go around for everybody.
Yeah, totally.
Well, David, I mean, it's been great chatting with you. I mean, we can just go on and on and on. I mean, this is fun, man. I love it.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you coming on today to share some of your insights and wisdom and personal experience on health and wellness and mindset, especially how to quit smoke. I'm sorry, how to stop smoking.
There you go.
And literally change your habit. You can apply that to anything. And I guess the biggest takeaway is breathe, be in the moment, give your fullest attention to anyone that you come in contact with, because, and part of this is you never know, like you said, how fast things can change, right? You never know if you're going to be around tomorrow. I mean, you assume that you are. I mean, there's a highly likely chance that you are going to be here tomorrow, but you don't know.
No.
So where can people find you, David?
So RichMansGym is that's the website, www.richmansgym.com. If you want more info on my book, you can search, or the website for that is StopDontQuit.com. If you want information about sales, marketing, training, that would be CardoneSolutions.com. Those are 3 different websites that I run, I manage, all of which will have multiple ways to get a hold of me. I'm on Twitter at David R. Bradley.
Okay. And we'll include all that in our show notes. So definitely listeners go to drjohnr.com/podcast and you can find it up there. And we will include the summary of today's discussion as well.
Cool.
All right. So the name of the show is called The Wellness Cafe. What does wellness mean to you?
That's an awesome, it's such a good word, you know. I think the first thing that popped into my head is in college I studied a lot of theater and did a lot of plays, and the theater professor at that college, we were doing West Side Story, and we came out like second or third night and we just killed it. I mean, should have gotten a Tony. I mean, it was like the best. Everything clicked. Perfect. Like picture perfect show. We're backstage and we never had post-show meetings ever. And so the director says, we need to have a meeting. And we thought we were going to get stroked, get, you know, great show. Like, you know, we get backstage and he goes, all right, here's the deal. You guys just did the best performance I've ever seen in the history of the college. You guys have done the best. This was the best show ever, literally. It's over now. You need to be proud of what you did, but if you become satisfied, don't show up tomorrow. So when you ask the question, what does wellness mean to me? I think if you are in a place of being proud of who you are and how you've gotten to where you're at, regardless of how you got here, be proud of who you are, but by all means do not allow yourself to be satisfied. there's a high human potential if we're back to that infinite being having a temporary human experience, and you have to keep reaching for maximizing what your true potential is. And that, to me, if you're in a place of being proud of where you're at but not satisfied, you're in a place of wellness.